Hello, everyone, and this is the fourth episode of The Best Damn Critic in the Universe. And tonight I will be reviewing The Imitation Game. Now, this was a drama slash thriller, as they called it, and it was directed by Morton Tildum. Yeah, Morton Tildum, sorry. Relatively unknown director. He's a British director, not many United States releases. And this story was a very interesting story. It was about a brilliant mathematician named Alan Turing, and he was the one who helped decode the Enigma, which was a system of codes that the Nazis used in World War II. And him and his team are responsible for cracking this code, which saved millions of lives and cut the war by at least 2 or 3 years, saving, the film said, around 14 million lives, which is a very good accomplishment. And with his research in the Enigma, he helped start basically the thought of creating the first computers. And he called this machine Christopher after a childhood friend of his. All right, so let's get into characters. Now, the lead was Benedict Cumberbatch, and he has played his notable roles as Billy Bulger in Black Mass, and he was Whitey Bulger's senator brother, and he was the voice of Smaug in the Hobbit movies, and most notably, he will be playing the lead role of the much anticipated Doctor Strange that I will definitely be reviewing, that will be coming out in mid-November, I believe. Now, he plays an eccentric, brilliant mathematician who's, a little strange. And to be honest, most people like Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs, most innovative people are a little bit strange. They have to be. And he plays the role very well, a very strong character. You can see his heart's in it the whole way. You can see he actually probably really enjoyed playing this film. And he is, like I said, narcissistic. He's an eccentric. He's eccentric. He's a loner. He's very antisocial. He doesn't work well at all with his peers, who really hate him up until the last maybe like 45 minutes of this 2 hour movie. And yeah, he did a very good role, I believe. He's good at playing. I could see him being good at Doctor Strange too, sort of like a brainy, eccentric guy. I don't know if Doctor Strange is a loner, but he played it very well. Now, the second of my top three actors that I usually do in my reviews is Keira Knightley. She's also a protagonist, and she plays Joanne Clark, who basically, I'm not going to give too much away, but to find new people for the team, he puts in this crossword puzzle, and if you finish it, you take this test, and then you become part of the team if you can pass this test within 10 minutes. So she does all that, and she's a very strong woman. She's going against the grain of the norm. She doesn't want to be married with kids. She wants to work. She wants to do things. She wants to do exceptional things. And she does a very good role. She always plays a good, strong woman in her roles, and she did just that in this film. And I thoroughly enjoyed her performance. Her and the main character had a lot of good chemistry. You could tell they worked very well together. And the last major character was Charles Dance, who played Commander Denniston, which, if you watch Game of Thrones, you know him as Tywin Lannister. And he's the antagonist. Like, there's not a real clear antagonist because, it's all centered in Britain. So he would be the clear antagonist. He's not really a nice guy. He doesn't believe in Alan's work. He thinks he doesn't like Alan at all. At every step he tries to sabotage him. He accuses him of being a Soviet spy at some point when he isn't, you know. And he played the role very well. He really reached in for his inner Tywin Lannister. If you watch Game of Thrones, you know what I mean. Tywin is a very, brutish, brusque kind of guy, and he does exactly that. And he played that role very well. He was, the Yang to Benedict or Alan Turning's Ying, I mean, sorry. They were always at odds, butting heads, and Charles Dance did a very good job. I thought he was a good actor. He always plays, the brutish, dickish role very well. I think he did a great job. So the other characters were unknowns, but I have to say they were all strong actors. They seemed like they were mostly British actors, but they did a really good job, and they had a lot of chemistry together. When they hated him, you could see it was somewhat genuine, and then they started liking him after Keira Knightley, Joanne started helping Alan open up, and so on. They had great chemistry, and it seems like they could have worked together before, or they just might have had good chemistry right off the bat. All right, concerning the story, it was a very good story. It was very intricate, had a lot of layers, and it had a lot of layers of conflict. That's the most important part. I felt it had three separate conflicts. First off, it had the conflict of Alan Turing conflict with himself. He was this egotistical mathematician who thought he was who thought he was so cool and not cool, but he was so good at math. He was the smartest in the world, but he had a lot of self doubt. He didn't know if his machine was going to work. He didn't know if he could break the code, etc. He was constantly fighting with himself to see if he could actually do this. Another conflict was the world's conflict with his homosexuality, because in England, from up to, I don't remember when it started, but from up to 1965, you could go to jail for 2 years for being homosexual if they found out you were homosexual. It's called an indecency law. I don't remember the name of the law, but yeah. So there was a definite conflict with the world with his homosexuality. He was constantly like, one of his team found out and they didn't really care, but they told him to be hush hush about it, and you could tell if they, like they were saying, if they found out about his homosexuality, he couldn't get a job anywhere. You were done after that. And also, the biggest conflict was between Alan and his peers and his superiors. Well, with his superiors, he was constantly butting heads with them throughout the whole movie, but with his peers, around the first hour and 10 minutes of the 2 hour movie, he was definitely butting heads with his peers until they finally realized that this could work. So that was a big conflict because, like in the beginning, especially, they were constantly they were working hard trying to break the code by hand when he was working on this machine, and they were constantly nagging him, and he would never talk. He would barely talk to them. He would barely do anything to be associated with them, and that was definitely a big conflict of the story. So I really liked the layers of the story. It wasn't just one straight conflict. It wasn't just them against the Nazis. For by cracking the Enigma code, it had a lot of layers to it, which was very good. And they used flashbacks very well. I love when a story can use flashbacks well. And they definitely did with this one. They went back and forth. They started off in the 1950s after the war. He got arrested for indecency, and he was telling a story to the detective because he wanted him to judge him like a game, I guess as he put it. And he went, to obviously during World War II when he was trying to crack the Enigma, and he went back to his childhood in the late 1920s, like mid to late 1920s when he was in boarding school, an all boys boarding school, and it showed how he turned out like he did, why he was so narcissistic, why he was so egotistical, why he was so withdrawn, so introverted. And there were good reasons why. I'm not going to give too much away, but there were good reasons why. And it also showed how his homosexuality emerged because, we're all born predisposed to be homosexual or straight, heterosexual. And but especially in that time, you never came out with it. You never even tried it because you could go to jail. But certain events in his life at that boarding school pointed him in the direction of becoming homosexual, and his basically his first and only love. So, yes, like I said, I like the conflicts and I loved the flashbacks. Very good flashbacks and very informative about his story and his background. And finally, the message. It had a very good message. A lot of times when we're kids, we always pick on, the most eccentric people, sort of like the biggest dreamers because, we don't understand them. They're very misunderstood. But these dreamers, these innovators were these strange kids we knew in school. And they do great things like Steve Jobs, Albert Einstein are two examples who never fit in, but they changed the world in such a good way, just like Alan Turing did. He paved the way for computers, for what I'm recording right now. He is the reason for all of this. We might have invented it like maybe 20, 30 years later, but we might not be at the level we are now because of Turing. So the message is that, it's okay to be strange. It's okay, because there's a good possibility you might be the next Steve Jobs. You might be the next Albert Einstein. You might be the next Alan Turing. So basically, Keira Knightley summed it up perfectly. I don't remember the exact quote, but she said, people, with no imagination could never think of this. They could never fathom this machine, which she called Christopher, that became later the first computer, a thing that thinks for itself, a thing that runs by itself. So basically, it's don't be afraid to be strange. That's the message I feel it is. So, my prognosis of the film, my review of the film, I liked it. It was a very good film. It had layers of drama, the characters were strong, the production value was strong, the costumes and stuff were on point, the flashbacks were great, had a lot of conflict, had a lot of drama. It wasn't much of a thriller like they said, but that's my only thing is it was slightly slow paced. But if you like a good drama, and if you can, and it's only 2 hours, so it's not incredibly slow paced. It's just slightly slow paced, which is why I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Everything else is perfect. I loved everything about this film, and it's on Netflix. So if you have Netflix, you should watch it. If you don't, you should definitely rent it or whatever. All right, so this is the best damn critic in the universe signing off. Please, 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 before I go, subscribe, share, like this video, subscribe to everything, my Facebook page, the best damn critic in the universe. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, the best damn critic in the universe, please, and thank you.